Right.
So working in the recording industry, working in music, something happened, and you both decided you were going to be a conservative Republican, and then follow that dream to Washington.
That happened later. And I really wanted to get back to the East Coast. The energy, the you know, all of the stimulation that's here. I absolutely love it. And when I came to Washington, I was, still
Why
liberal.
Washington?
My college roommate was living here, and another good friend.
So it was random.
Estonians, totally random. I really wanted New York, but that was just going to be so prohibitively expensive, and I didn't want to live with 4 roommates in a 1-bedroom, walk up and eat canned soup. So, so I came to Washington. It was fabulous, and I remember when I first met conservatives, I was really kind of freaked out by them, and are they
stay
mean?
away from me?
Exactly.
Right. You're from another planet.
Yeah, and then I started reading these subversive publications like the Weekly Standard and National Review, and I'll confess, when I first started reading this, I would go to Starbucks and I'd put the National Review inside of a copy of the New Republic, so like nobody could see what I was reading.
Did you really think we had hit squads for conservatives here? Interesting, okay. So it was through the reading of their ideology rather than the meeting of the people that you found some logic in what they had to say?
It was a mixture of both. I also was working for a woman named Barbara Ladine, who is a force of nature, just an incredible, dynamic
Very
woman.
controversial person.
Controversial.
And her husband?
Yes, Michael. And she just was introducing
How did you end up working for her?
My college roommate, Amanda, was working for the American Enterprise Institute.
Okay.
And she said, I heard about this little women's organization that's just getting going, and maybe you'd like to meet Barbara. I meet Barbara that afternoon. She's like, come to my house for dinner.
Yeah.
And she takes me home for dinner, introduces me to her family, and she's like, so you need a job, kid? I was like, I do. She's like, I know some people. And she introduced me to Arianna Huffington. And Arianna was looking for an assistant and some other folks. And within...
So had you outed yourself as a conservative at this point?
No.
You were still keeping,
Yes.
you were still living a double life.
Well, I told Barbara that I'd voted. She was just fascinated by me. I think she saw me as a project.
Yeah.
And so within 2 or 3 days, Barbara had introduced me to a ton of people. I had 5 job offers.
Just working as Arianna Huffington's assistant, I would think, could be a whole interview. But,
yes, and I went to her house is when she lived in what is now the Desorts' house.
Right.
And
meaning she was living large.
As Arianna is wont to do.
Yes. Well funded.
Yes.
Well funded.
So after Barbara introduced me to these folks, she said, well, why am I sending you over there? Come work for me.
Yeah.
So I said, that sounds amazing. My first few months in Washington, I worked with Barbara, and I was a nighttime nanny for Arianna when she lived here. It was really fun, and so it's strange now to be on.
You probably had to sign You probably had to sign lots of confidentiality agreements, right? No. It was an interesting time. Well, because she hadn't started Huffington Post yet, and I think
she was still a conservative.
And she was disengaging from her interesting marriage. I mean, at that time.
Yes.
Yes. So you had lots going on during the night shift. I'm sure.
No.
Oh, okay. You don't have to talk about it here. So at this point, you've decided you're a conservative, and
I'm getting there, yeah.
And so how did you then get from there to a role in media and on the air?
Well, just serendipity. So I was working for this new upstart fledgling women's organization that was really making waves. And the Washington Post decided to do a style section feature on the organization. There were 4 of us working there, 2 in this teeny little basement in Washington and 2 in Arlington. And within 2 months of living in Washington, there was my picture of the style section, like, the future of conservatism. And I was like, that's crazy. And I called my mom. I was like, go to the newsstand and check this out. Washington's amazing. You can be in the newspaper in 2 months.
Yeah, and then it all happens.
And then, television producers saw this.
Well, what do you think they saw, Amy? You think maybe they saw black conservative? We got a booker right away. Yeah, I mean.
And I actually did not accept those initial
offers.
No, not for about a year. I just
because
was
what do you think they wanted you? What dance do you think they wanted you to do?
Well, my thoughts are really they were still evolving. They were still forming for me, and this was when the cable networks were just getting up and going. So you have 24/7 news, and they don't know what to do with it. So they just want to throw people on there and see what happens.
So what year is this?
This would have been I got to DC in October of '95, so '95.
Okay,
96.
so this is pre-Clinton meltdown, really.
Yes.
Yeah. So
That's when my career really launched.
Oh, yeah. So you owe it all to Monica Lewinsky?
I do. Wonderful Monica. She was so good to so many people.
You know, it's interesting. It's interesting. They say that she's that she singularly is staying out of this race because the feeling she could so affect its outcome if she were to, you know, talk,
Hideous. I can't
give her support to a particular candidate in one direction or another. That it could, well, this campaign so far has been riding on such thin air, the way it veers this way, that way, that it could be entirely possible that an interview with Monica Lewinsky could change it in another direction. But we'll get there. So you went to work for BET.
I did. Yes.
And you were hosting a show.
I was.
And that was kind of that got you in front of the camera, and got you comfortable with being on camera.
It did. Previous to that, I had worked for the Fox News Channel as a contributor,
Right.
and MSNBC, and I was with them for election 2000, which, as you all know, like turned into this,
Right.
you know, incredible melodrama that was so fun.
Right.
And
helps one's career when you want to
Certainly.
be positioned as a pundit or an
Sure, absolutely.
opinionator. But so when did you kind of launch into the career of being a political analyst, a political commentator, pundit, whatever one of those names you want to give it, that you've been doing now for the past several years? Was it Clinton?
Well, I would say that it was Clinton. It definitely was that, and
I'm imagining you gave him no mercy.
Oh, none.
None.
Zero, zero.
Yeah.
Also because I was a former Clinton supporter, so I was really disappointed.
Even harder on him.
Yeah, I mean, that whole fiasco. My
Right.
mom had been a Clinton supporter. She became a conservative after that.
Right.
But it's interesting, some of those folks are going back now that Barack Obama is in the race, that those folks who are disaffected by the Clinton years now sort of have new hope and new inspiration.
So when the whole Clinton thing was over, I guess Bush gets elected. How did Bill Frist come into your life? Was it a Princeton connection, or did you two know each other?
It was actually Barbara Ladine, once again, being my fairy godmother, yes.
Because the Frists are very tightly connected to Princeton.
Oh, yes, very much so. They have a huge building on campus that they built.
What possibly possessed you to want to go work on Capitol Hill?
It was a fabulous job opportunity. I was working for the CEO of AmeriCorps and hosting the show on the weekends for BET, and which actually Beverly took over.
Beverly Kirk, right here.
Yes.
Always happy to see her.
And Barbara called me and again was like, "Hey kid, you need a job?" And I was like, "Well, I have one, not for long," like because my boss was going cuckoo.
Okay. That happens.
Anyway, she said, well, Bill Frist has just been elevated to majority leader, as you know, and he's looking to sort of round out his staff, and with really an outside perspective. People who have not been sort of sucked into, you know, the Hill mentality of looking at issues, and, you know, would you consider interviewing with him? And I thought, my goodness, for my first job on the Hill to be a senior staffer for the Senate Majority Leader,
and he had just become the Majority Leader too.
Yes.
And what was that like? I mean, because suddenly you really have to take a consistent point of view.
Well, I had to, you know, I was a speechwriter, so it wasn't necessarily my point of view.
Right, but I mean, you have to you have to buy into somebody else's point of view. Is I guess what I meant to say.
Well, you know, there were many.
Did you agree with him on everything?
No, and what's interesting in my interview, I was asked, so I wrote columns for USA Today. You've been on television, you know, talking about your politics. Are there big areas where you disagree with the leader that, you know, someone could go Google search it and find it out? And I was like, oh, certainly, I'm pro-choice. That's a big one.
Right.
And, you know, I'm not particularly, you know, I'm sort of neutral on the gay marriage issue. And that's another big one. So he said, you know, that's fine, that's great. Please come join my staff. And actually a lot of non-conservatives are very surprised by that, you know, his speechwriter for the Senate floor might disagree with him on what are, you know, considered really sort of bedrock, hot button issues.
Were you with him during Terry Schiavo?